Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
hmm
We're diving into something today that's been on a lot of people's minds, and it's weighing kind of heavily, I think, on a lot of us, this whole pressure cooker of academics and how it's impacting teenagers.
Yeah.
So whether you are a teenager and you're feeling this firsthand, maybe you're a parent and you're worried about your kid, or even if you're an educator and you're just like, how do we handle this? How do we help? This is the episode for you.
It's interesting because we always talk about academic pressure as if it's just this given, this rite of passage.
Right, like it's just part of it.
But the reality is it can have a really deep impact on a teenager's well-being, and sometimes in ways that we don't even really fully realize.
Totally. And that's what we're going to unpack today. We've
Yep.
been looking into some research, and it's kind of alarming how this pressure is actually showing up in teenagers' lives. Like, for example, did you know over 55% of students are saying that their sleep patterns have changed because of this pressure? We're talking like sleepless nights, tossing and turning, worrying about grades. That impacts your not just mental health, but your physical health too.
And you're right, it's not just sleep, it's also eating habits, right? Almost 60% of students say that their eating habits have changed because of this. So they're either skipping meals because they're so stressed out, or they're like stress eating,
Oh, yeah.
finding comfort food.
Which, let's be honest, never makes anything better in the long run.
No, it just makes it worse. It's like this pressure just throws everything off balance.
100%. And then on top of all of that, 70% of students say that they're having a hard time concentrating.
Yeah.
So imagine trying to like absorb information when your mind is like a hamster wheel of just worry.
Absolutely. It's really difficult. It's like this domino effect, right? You feel the pressure, it leads to stress. Stress messes with your sleep, messes with your eating, and then because of that, you can't even focus on your schoolwork,
It's a vicious cycle.
which just creates more pressure. And it really is. And the thing is, this isn't anecdotal. Like, there's actual science behind this.
Right.
When we are under constant stress, our bodies are pumping out these hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, and that's our body's natural fight or flight response. But when it's constantly activated because of, school and all this pressure, it really takes a toll on the body, on your sleep, on your appetite, even your ability to focus and retain information.
So it's like a literal physical reaction happening in your body. It's not just kids being dramatic or being lazy. Like their brains are actually being impacted by this pressure cooker environment.
Exactly. And these changes, they're not just like an inconvenience. These are actually red flags for kind of more serious mental health concerns, anxiety, depression, burnout. So it's really crucial to understand what is actually driving all of this intense pressure.
So if we're talking about like what's actually fueling this pressure cooker, what are the biggest culprits? What's really pushing these kids to the edge?
Well, I think a really big one is that constant focus on grades, that pressure to maintain a really high GPA. Almost 70% of students say that this is a huge stressor for them.
Yeah, it's like this constant competition, this need to always be at the top. And I feel like it creates this fear of failure, right?
Absolutely. And that fear can be really paralyzing. It prevents kids from taking risks, trying new things, really embracing, the learning process, because they're so afraid of making a mistake, of getting a B instead of an A, that it really hinders their growth.
Oh, totally. And I can relate to that so much. I remember when I was in high school, I was so stressed out about my grades and staying up late studying, constantly comparing myself to like how everyone else was doing. Honestly, it kind of took the fun out of learning for me.
And that's what's so sad, right? Because education should be about exploring, being curious, expanding your mind. But when you're so worried about your GPA, it takes that sense of wonder and excitement out of it.
Okay, so we've got this pressure to like excel academically, this fear of not measuring up. So what are these teenagers doing to cope with this? What's the research saying?
Well, the good news is a lot of teens are finding really healthy ways to manage. The most common one, and this is kind of nice to hear, it's pretty simple. It's talking to friends and family.
Yeah.
Almost 66% of students say they rely on their support network to kind of get them through those really tough times.
That makes a lot of sense, right? Sometimes you just need to vent, get it off your chest. That can make a world of difference.
Totally. Social support is crucial. It gives you a sense of belonging, validation that you're not alone in this.
For sure.
Another popular coping mechanism is engaging in hobbies and activities that they actually enjoy.
Yes.
Over 38% of students say they do this.
So important. Taking a break from the books, doing something you love, whether it's sports or painting or just listening to music. It's such a good way to de-stress.
It's all about finding those outlets that allow you to kind of disconnect from that pressure and reconnect with yourself.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the good ways that teens are coping with all this pressure. But let's be real for a second. There are some not so healthy coping mechanisms out there. What are some red flags that, parents and educators should be looking out for?
Yeah, so one concerning trend is substance use, and while it's not as common as you might think, only about 10% of students said that they do this, it's still something to watch out for.
Right.
It makes sense. I get it. Some teens might try to escape the pressure with, substances,
Yeah.
but obviously that's not a good long-term solution, and it can actually make things a lot worse.
Of course. And I think, it kind of speaks to this larger issue, which is that so many teens are dealing with this silently. They're not talking about it. And the research says that only 9% of students who are going through this kind of pressure are actually seeking out professional help.
Yeah, and that's the part that really, it keeps me up at night, honestly, because there's still such a stigma around mental health. It's like this idea that if you ask for help, you're weak or it's something to be ashamed of. It's so damaging.
Yeah. It's like saying, oh, you broke your leg. Well, walk it off, Like, mental health is just as important as physical health. Sometimes we need a little extra help to get through these things.
Exactly. We need to normalize asking for help, whether that's talking to a therapist or a counselor or even just a trusted adult. And that all starts with being open and honest, having conversations about it, both at home and in our classrooms.
100%. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about solutions here. What can educators do to create a more supportive environment for these teenagers?
Well, for parents, it's so important to make sure your kids feel safe talking about their struggles.
Yeah.
Let them know they can come to you, that you're going to meet them with empathy, you're going to understand, no judgment, no pressure to just get over it.
Right. And it's more about celebrating who they are,
Yeah.
right? Celebrating their effort, their perseverance, their resilience. Those are the things that really matter.
Exactly. And for educators, it's about making the classroom a place where well-being is valued just as much as grades.
Yeah.
Maybe try incorporating some stress management techniques, mindfulness exercises, or even just encouraging open conversations about mental health.
Totally. It's about normalizing it, right? The ups, the downs, the struggles, and the wins, they're all part of it. It's about making resources available,
Yeah.
making sure that there's access to mental health support right there in the school.
It really does take a village. We need parents, educators, mental health professionals, and just society as a whole to come together to support these kids.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I mean, we
Yeah.
covered so much today, and it can feel overwhelming. But if there's one thing I want to leave our listeners with, it's hope. If you're a teen out there and you're struggling, please know you are not alone. There are people who care, and there's help out there.
And don't be afraid to reach out. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, a family member, a counselor. Your mental health matters, and asking for help when you need it, that's what makes you strong.
And for the parents listening and the educators, keep those conversations going. Be patient, be empathetic, and be proactive. We can all do our part to make the world a better place for these kids.
Learning should be exciting, not a pressure cooker. Let's bring back that joy.
You got it. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.